Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the PSU 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary. Changed it up. Joined as always with my co-host, Dylan Callahan Crawley. Dylan, it's been an interesting week for Penn State, especially on the football front. Let's just start things off with recruiting. Penn State lost a commitment last week to an Omari Gaines, 2025 New Jersey athlete. Went to Twitter and announced his decommitment. Initial thoughts on that one?
I don't think you and I are really too surprised here. We both have felt that this one could be in the works here for the last couple weeks or so. I think both parties here kind of realized Mari would be better suited to end up perhaps somewhere else. And from what I've gathered, there's no hard feelings on the Gaines side right now. And Penn State is comfortable with the way they're going. Omari, I think, is a good player. Is going to should end up at a Power 5 school, Syracuse, maybe Stanford, who recently offered him. Stanford, just on a side note, just been coming out east and doing a really good job recruiting in general under this new coaching staff. So that could be something to watch. But at the same time, while he's a good football player, I think that resource for Penn State, which is obviously that scholarship, it could maybe be allocated towards maybe a player with maybe some higher end potential. Not that Gaines doesn't have that, but unfortunately, I think there's a little bit better players on the board for Penn State right now than Gaines was. But that's how these things go. And I think the most recent offers for Gaines probably tells you where he's kind of at in his recruitment in terms of value in the eyes of other programs. So that's also worth noted there. It's been mostly group of 5 programs, mid to low tier group of 5 programs, and Stanford.
Yeah. He was actually Penn State's longest tenured commitment because Jalen Matthews also decommitted. That's 2 New Jersey decommits as the only decommitments for Penn State this cycle. Is there any concern there?
I wouldn't say concern. I mean, they still got DJ McClary out of New Jersey, of course. And yeah, I mean, anytime you lose 2 guys from Jersey that you had committed your first 2 commits of the class, it always sucks. And Penn State wants to build strong connections Jersey, but they still are going to do that with Khalil Mack. They're still in it for a ton of New Jersey kids in the 2025 class. So I don't think it's going to hurt their, stock in New Jersey. Jalen Matthews, kind of similar to Omari Gaines, kind of has his development hasn't continued the way that many thought it was going to be. And that's why he's no longer the Rivals 250. Not even sure, is he still a 4-star on Rivals?
Yeah, he still is. Okay,
still a 4-star, but he used to be a top 100 player in the country, almost top 50 player in the country, I think. And not even the 250. It tells you a lot there. So I think these 2 cases are, they are what they are. There's not much behind them. It's just those 2 players didn't develop the way Penn State thought. Penn State's very comfortable with the way those 2 recruitments have progressed and are going to turn their attention elsewhere. Which for Penn State, we look at safety especially. They are in it for a handful of really highly ranked safeties in this class. And when they had Omari Gaines committed, how many safeties are you going to take? 2 more, 3 total? I mean,
that's true.
So now Penn State can take 2, can take 3 safeties, and have the room to do so.
Well, they still do have DePaul Catholic offensive lineman Michael Troutman committed.
True.
They also have an official visit with his teammate Desi Jones. I'm told there's a couple other DePaul kids that they're keeping an eye on. So the DePaul Catholic this year is actually on like a crazy good team this year.
Malachi Goodman, also out of New Jersey, is another kid they're high on. Going to be on campus this spring. And should get an official visit out of.
Yeah, Quincy Porter, Jameer Joseph, Kamar Archie, like the list goes on and on. Yeah. So shouldn't be too much concern there. Other recruiting updates, I'm trying to look at. Matt Zollers offered a little update on his recruitment, and he kind of hinted at what we've been hinting at for the past couple months. He's going to make a commitment probably this spring after a couple visits.
That one, like you said, we've been saying it's going to be a March-April decision for Matt Zollers. That's what he told Adam Friedman over the weekend. Going to visit his 4 finalists: Penn State, Georgia, Missouri, and Pitt. And for those who watch the video, which you can go to on our site to see it, or I think you could find it on YouTube as well. I'm not sure if we have it hidden on YouTube or not, but either way, if you go on to pennstate.rivals.com, you could watch it there. And based off what he said, I think it's kind of clear that Pittsburgh is the number 4 team right now in this recruitment. And then Penn State and Missouri, I still think are the 1-2 right now. And then Georgia is kind of what is Georgia doing in terms of Juju Lewis? Are they going to continue to push for him, or are they comfortable taking Zollers? If they're comfortable taking Zollers, I think it becomes a 3-horse race, truly. And then it'll get really interesting because obviously Georgia and Missouri both have nice NIL funds, we've been told, and Penn State has a good one, and it's progressing in the right direction, but I wouldn't say it's probably up to the par of Georgia or Missouri just yet. And I don't think NIL will be the end all be all here, but if Georgia or Missouri make a nice NIL offer, Penn State's at least going to have to be competitive, I think, in that aspect to land the commitment. But I still like Penn State's chances here going into, well, now that we're into March, heading into this visit season for Zollers, and we'll just have to take it visit by visit because I think these obviously are going to, even though these are not official visits, these are essentially going to be official visits in the sense that these are going to be the 4 visits that decide his recruitment, and then he'll take an official visit in June to wherever he commits to. You're muted. Muted.
Yeah, never mind. Ignore that. Yeah, so they have Beckham Kritza committed already. Yeah. They sent out 18 total quarterback offers in this class. Out of those 18, I'm looking now, I believe 14 of them are already committed elsewhere.
Yeah.
So is it basically just as simple as if Zollers goes to Missouri or Georgia, it's Malik Washington up next?
Yeah, I think Malik Washington is obviously the next guy in that quarterback big board there that they would pursue. Mm-hmm. But then I guess I'd be interested to see from Washington's point of view how he feels about Penn State, kind of obviously, at least in the public eye, pushing for Zollers. You look at Penn State's quarterback recruitment over the last couple months, it's been Zollers. We have heard barely anything about Malik Washington, and he has, he has expanded his recruitment. And that was never recruitment that Penn State was, the front runner for by a mile. Were they in the lead there? I thought they were, but it wasn't a slam dunk recruitment by any means. So yeah, Washington in my mind would be the next one up. But I think that would still end up, they would have to battle for him as well.
Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. I know he does have an official visit to Virginia Tech, I believe, and that's the only thing scheduled so far.
And then if they miss on him, then things get quite interesting. do they go for number 2 at that point? Because here's the thing, I think they really do like Beckham Kritza, and I think Beckham Kritza has a ton of potential. His arm is arguably the best in the entire 2025 recruiting class, but he still probably fits more into a project category than anything else. So, I mean, are you comfortable with taking one quarterback who is a project in this class and then just aiming high for 2026? Now, we kind of were saying similar at this point last year if they missed on Michael Van Buren, which, quite frankly, they missed on Michael Van Buren, but they also kind of got lucky with Michael Van Buren trending elsewhere at the time. He was trending towards Oregon because, quite frankly, I don't think Michael Van Buren is as good of a quarterback as Ethan Grunkmeyer is, who they ultimately landed. But this time last year, Ethan Grunkmeyer was, probably considered a project type quarterback, was a relative nobody in recruiting. He had mostly Group of 5 offers in the region. His big offers were Penn State and Minnesota. And then Penn State offers and gets him in May. So, I mean, it's always interesting how these things work out. It's never clear cut. So, it'd be very interesting to see what happens in the case they miss Zollers and Washington. But I would say that's the least likely of the 3 scenarios. So
I was kind of looking through it. So obviously Koltonicki's the new guy running the offense, running the show. They had a quarterback commit at Kansas that's been there committed since July 2023. So, in David McComb out of Oklahoma. I know Penn State has an offer. He doesn't have many other offers, but I'd be interested to see if they reach out to him if things don't go their way with Zollers in Washington.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would be a good point by you there. He's been obviously committed there a long time. So is that a Koltonicki? Obviously, I don't think at this point it was a Koltonicki thing. It probably was a Lance Leipold thing, which is pretty fair. But yeah, if things go a little sideways here for Penn State quarterback, and they do want a second quarterback, I could definitely see them reaching out to McComb. The rest of the offer sheet isn't great.
No,
his next best offer is Virginia Tech. You could argue that's a better offer than Kansas, Memphis. But outside that's Akron, North Texas, Toledo, Tulsa. But again, that shouldn't be necessarily a barricade for him for Penn State if they chose to go in that direction. You look at it like we just said, Grunkmeyer. His offer sheet last year at this time wasn't strong. It was the strongest. It was similar, and then Jackson Smolik, another very similar case.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit from recruiting because there's not really much else to talk about until the dead period ends, which I think ends next week, I believe, or this week.
It may have.
Forget when it is.
You go. I'm gonna look it up. You go on to the next.
But yeah, no, I want to talk a little bit about the NFL Combine. 10 former Nittany Lions were there. Not all participated in certain drills. Hunter Norzad specifically didn't participate in any drills. Johnny Dixon didn't participate in any drills. But the rest did. There were some really high highs and some really low lows. So
that period ended yesterday. Today begins the quiet period.
Okay, gotcha. So recruiting will just kick back up soon within the next couple of weeks because spring practice is coming up.
Yeah, kids can't be on campus as soon as today. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. There you go. But NFL Combine talk. Let's start with the highs. Chopper Robinson, holy shit. I think we knew this was going to happen, though, kind of.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, if you're shocked, I mean, where have you been? Because I know we on this podcast, you, me, Marty, Anthony, have been saying for months he was going to go to the Combine and test off the charts. And I think if you listen to any Penn State podcast, they would have said the same thing. Job Robinson is an absolute beast of a physical specimen when it comes to his athletic ability. And I am by no means surprised at what he did in Indianapolis this week. I think he easily moved himself into a high second round selection, if not into a first round selection.
I was going to say first round without a
doubt. I think he should go in the first round, but you know how NFL GMs can be. Sometimes the smartest man in the room tend to overthink these things. Because I think we all can agree as football fans, as football writers, there's been plenty of times where we have a good feeling of who's maybe going to be a bust, who's not going to be a bust, and then we end up being right, but we're also obviously wrong a ton. But I think he should go first round. But a lot of GMs will overthink it, and he won't go first round. He may slip. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. for some reason didn't go in the first round last year.
Yeah, crazy. And then look what he did this year. So, insane.
That being said, talking about Joey Porter Jr. going to the first round, Penn State's chance of getting a cornerback in the first round this year, not going to.
Died. Yeah, no, that
completely died.
We can just talk about the low lows. Kalen King, man. I know he had a decent performance in the non-testing stuff. But the testing stuff was brutal. He put up some really bad numbers. I think he was 4.7.
It was bad.
4.61, which is 28th for cornerbacks alone.
Yeah, it was bad, and I think testing isn't always the end all be all. There's plenty of
No.
corners out there, of course, who weren't the greatest testers and turned into really good cornerbacks. But you combine the testing numbers with the really poor second half of the season for him, and it's just he went from a potential first round pick to he's going to get drafted, but I think he's a day 3 pick at this point.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
And
it's such a drop off.
Yeah, such drop off in 5 months. Loss. It's very unfortunate for him, and he's obviously probably should return at this point. But
that's because you didn't have to deal with Marvin Harrison Jr. either, so that would have been nice. But he's had some good performances though, so I feel like he still could be a successful NFL cornerback at the end of the day.
Yes, I still think there's a lot of potential there, and I still think he could develop into a corner, but it's unfortunate for him. It's going to cost him millions of dollars, tens of millions.
Another high sticking with the cornerbacks. Daquan Hardy had himself a day.
Yep. Not surprised by the athletic testing on that one. And anybody who's watched Penn State knows how good of a football player Daquan Hardy is. What did he measure in at?
Daquan Hardy was 5'9" and 3/8.
Okay, so that's not bad.
180 pounds.
That's not bad. Because obviously the biggest thing going against him was his size. But at 5'9", there's enough corners of that size, throughout the history of the NFL, especially recently. So I think that's big. He could be a punt returner. We've seen that. He could return kicks if somebody wanted to. I think big for him. I do wonder if his size will still hold him back from being maybe a round 3 pick, but I think he could go 4th round.
I'm looking now. A lot have him as a 4th and 5th. Even a couple had him 6th, but these are a little bit older. With that testing, though, that he did, I think he ran a 4.39, which was 6th among corners. He had the highest vertical jump.
He's a stud. He was a huge pickup for Penn State late in that cycle. And I mean, and this just shows you that sometimes you get lucky on these types of things, and recruiting isn't that easy. If he wasn't a signing day pickup, he was very close to being a signing day pickup. And I mean, Penn State didn't have, I think they didn't offer him until right before the sign day in that recruiting cycle that he was a part of. And they got lucky that he turned out to be a really damn good player for them. It's not always, even college coaches, even Penn State, who's one of the best programs when it comes to identifying talent early, almost missed him. He committed February 5th, 2019.
Yeah.
It was a 2-star in Rivals. So even we get them wrong.
Yeah, that's tough. Now, someone that I guess we didn't get wrong, has been really impressive is Caden Wallace. I was actually very intrigued, and his numbers it's hard to look at when you see offensive lineman ranks in a combine because they combine every position, tackle, guard, center, all together. So there's a deep group of them, but he had the 3rd best broad jump, the 25th best 40-yard, 20th best vertical jump. Like he had a really good day, and this is a guy that I think 2 years ago Penn State fans were get the fuck off the team.
We talked about Kalen King's descent over the last 5 months or so. Caden Wallace, exact opposite since the beginning of last year or this past season. Nobody, I think, has seen their draft stock as a Nittany Lion rise more than Caden Wallace. He went from maybe not being drafted into the NFL to he's going to be a legitimate early day 3 draft pick at this point. I think. Sure. Maybe he sneaks in a day 2. It's always hard. I mean, nobody thought Brennan Strange was going to go day 2 last year when he went day 2. Nobody thought Sean Clifford was going to get drafted, or let alone end up on an NFL roster or in training camp.
Player.
He gets day 5, and he was a legitimate backup for the Packers this year. So I think Caden Wallace, has done excellent just since last September.
Mhm.
has turned himself into a legitimate NFL offensive lineman, and he did really good at the All-Star game that he played at, and
Yeah.
he did really good at the combine. I mean, that's a credit to his hard work, and it's credit to Phil Trautwein, who another guy that Penn State fans weren't really happy with his first 2 years on campus, which
Mhm.
were the COVID year and the post-COVID year, first post-COVID year, and
Yeah.
I think the COVID year. I don't know how offensive line coaches did it because of all the restrictions at the time.
Yeah.
You
That's
can
right.
really, do a lot of physical stuff in practices because of it. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, 2020 was hard and 2022 was a little rough. But since then, Troutwine's done a fantastic job. And Caden Wallace is one of his better, I think, development uh, projects here over the last few years. I'd say during his career at Penn State, taking Wallace, especially this past year, like I said, from a guy who was going to be undrafted to a guy who was legitimately one of the better offensive linemen in the entire Big Ten this year, and is going to be a high day through draft pick, fourth round possibly here. And I think he could go on to have a really nice career. I've seen some people think that he could be a guy that, even as a rookie in the NFL, you could kind of plug in and start if needed.
Yeah, for sure. Other guys, Theo Johnson had a pretty good day. Curtis Jacobs had a good day. Adisa Isaac had a pretty good day. That's pretty much it though for combine talk. We're just waiting till the draft until
Yeah,
what is it, next
I,
month? April?
I, I'm very intrigued by Theo Johnson.
Yeah.
And I know people who follow me have seen it. You may have seen it because it was retweeted on an account. But Theo Johnson had a fantastic day. One of the
Yeah.
best testing numbers by a tight end ever. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to call somebody out, but there's a guy on Twitter who's like one of those fantasy football guys who think they actually understand football. There are fantasy guys who understand
Yeah.
football, but there's a lot who think they do and actually don't. And he was talking about how Penn State squandered tight end, how Penn State's ability to squander tight end in town is incredible. I mean, did Theo Johnson have disappointing performances at times? Absolutely, sure. But Penn State's tight ends last year combined for 73 receptions, 820 yards, and 16 touchdowns.
Yeah. So
I'm just saying, if that's squandering talent, I think every program in the country would like to squander their talent at tight end. But yeah, Theo Johnson didn't put up the biggest numbers, obviously, in his career, but athletically, he is better than Brock Bowers.
yeah, which
So,
is
I mean,
crazy to say.
kind of crazy to say, but it's true. And Brock Bowers gets all the love for being, this insane athlete. Well, Theo Johnson, I actually didn't see Brock Bowers' number, but considering that Theo Johnson had a relative athletic score of, I think, 9.9 officially. It was a 10 unofficial. I don't think Brock Bowers beat him out there.
We could also talk about the fact that the tight end room is just stacked every year, so they're not just
Exactly.
using one; they're using two. Like the Tyler
Even
Warren's
three.
next up. It's
Right.
Brenton Strange, NFL third round pick. Theo Johnson probably going to be a day 2, day 3 pick.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Warren's going to be picked too.
And Tyler Warren could be the best athlete of all the tight ends that Penn State's had over the last 10 years or so. I mean, that includes Mike Gesicki, obviously, and Pat Freiermuth, by the way, who both were, top 2 round draft picks. I mean, the Penn State is not squandering talent at tight end. That is for sure. But yeah, I'll be interested to see where Theo goes. I think he has tested his way into at least being a day 2 draft. I think he'll be a day 2 draft pick, either third round or maybe in the second round at some point. But yeah, Tyler Warren, maybe we'll see where Tyler Warren goes, because if he has a big year, I think he could play himself into maybe a second or first round pick next year too.
For sure.
Yeah, but Theo is the one I'm most intrigued by coming out of the combine.
Yeah, of course. Other than that, that's really it for all we have today for Penn State talk, Penn State football talk. We'll have another pod later this week on Penn State wrestling with the Big Ten tournament coming up. Not this weekend, I think it's next weekend, but seedings get announced tonight. So that's on its way. I expect Penn State to win a lot of those matches and a lot of those weight classes at least. So yeah, for me and Dylan, that's another episode of the PSU 365 podcast. Signing off.